engagement membership here at the Chamber. I'm so excited to have a partnership with the Diversity Engagement Coalition of Western North Carolina for our SMART series this year. And we've had some great sessions, and I hope you'll find this one to be just as interesting as I have the rest of them. I am first going to introduce Annie Carpenter from Mission, who is one of our sponsors for the SMART series this year. So Annie, tell us what's going on at Mission.
Hi there, everyone. Thank you, Amy. I'm Annie Carpenter, Community Engagement Program Director with Mission Health, and we are very proud to be a sponsor of the SMART series for the 2021 sessions, and glad that we here at Mission have over 130 years of history serving this community, 45 years as an active member of our wonderful Asheville Chamber. And I'm also very pleased that thanks to the partnership of multiple anchor institutions in the area, we were founding members of the WNC Diversity Engagement Coalition when it began. We're very grateful for the organization and the expertise that exists in our area, and grateful that conversations like these have been elevated for us to participate in. We value, we believe in having bold conversations, brave conversations, and value having community partnerships that allow us to learn continuously, to listen to others, to share and contribute our learnings so that we can be an inclusive workplace that allows our employees to offer equitable healthcare to everyone in the community. So that's a little bit about why I'm here today, a little bit about why Mission Health stepped up to sponsor this series, and why we're so grateful that the WCDEC and SMART series have joined to bring us these topics and discussions today. So thank you all for being here, and thank you for having me, Amy.
Of course, thank you so much. We're so appreciative of Mission's partnership with the Chamber, with the Diversity Engagement Coalition. It works well for everyone. Thank you so much. And Crystal, I want to say hello to you too. I want you to speak to the Diversity Engagement Coalition, please.
Thank you, Amy. Sorry, I have a kitten, and he very clingy. He's like a stage 5 clinger, so I'm just gonna give him the love he needs. But hello, everyone. Thanks for joining today. So the SMART series, I'm really happy that we got to pair with the Chamber of Commerce on this, because I've gotten to work with Amy a lot, and she's just really great and really transparent. And it was very easy for me to brainstorm with her and just be honest with her about what I feel like people need to be speaking to in a very honest way. And that's kind of what made me choose Connie to speak to gatekeeping specifically. I got to work with East Fork a little over the summer. And what I appreciated most about them is their self-awareness as an organization. I'm very much aware of Asheville, the history of Asheville, and what it's like to be an organization who is aware of their whiteness and wanting to use their platform to open doors and to be transparent about things that I think people in our city specifically shy away from. So I don't know, it just felt like the perfect kind of pairing of someone to speak to, which I feel like Connie is really knowledgeable and really honest. And I think that's what I prize most, is just that authenticity. So I'm really happy all of this has panned out the way it has. When thinking of these sessions, I really was trying to think of what would benefit businesses the most, to really have, instead of having like a trickle down, having more so like a rounded out kind of fixing of culture and what that looks like, and what conversations actually need to happen for that to be possible. So really glad we could do this. Really glad we have everyone here.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for saying that I'm transparent. Typically it's brutally honest, and I should probably turn on a filter, but transparent makes it feel better. So thanks, Crystal. I really enjoyed working with you as well, as always. Now I'm going to introduce Connie Matisse, one of the owners and co-founders of East Fork Pottery. Connie, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you so much. I will share a screen in just a minute, but just to make sure everyone is prepared, I am going to be asking for a little group participation. If you're feeling brave and you're looking decent, you're welcome to turn your camera on if it's not already on. I listen to myself talk all day, every day, and I'd love for an opportunity to hear other voices today as well. So if you weren't ready for that, like do a little throat exercise or something and get ready. A quick thank you to the Chamber. It's been really refreshing to just, we've just recently started working with them on some of the initiatives that they're putting out there to address diversity, equity, and inclusion in our community, and it's been really refreshing to see how committed they are to that work, and so glad to see that they've been working with folks like Crystal, who I have a lot of respect and trust for. So thank you, Crystal, for asking me here today. And yeah, so before we dive into gatekeeping, a couple kind of disclaimers. One, I'm an owner of a pottery company. I am not a DEI expert. I'm not a DEI scholar. I have done some activism and community organizing work in my past, but right now my biggest responsibility is running a pottery company. So that said, I have a lot of experience being a gatekeeper. I have a lot of experience being a gatekeeper for both individuals and for systems of oppression. I have experience gatekeeping systems of white supremacy, of patriarchy, of ableism. I have used my personal privilege and influence to give people access to things that they wouldn't have otherwise had access to if they hadn't been close to me and close to the power that I hold. So I have a lot of experience in that. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And so what I'm sharing today is really what I've learned from personal experience, being a gatekeeper and a holder of power, rather than like kind of walking through a more scholarly approach to it. So that to say that I don't have like beautiful quotes from people who are actually experts in the study of this field, but I have a lot of experience doing it and thinking about it and trying to think of new ways to do things. Before we get rolling, I'm just curious about just who's in the room. Just would love to, if anyone is up for turning their mic on and letting me know who you are, or else just popping in the chat. I'm curious to just know if you're, what sort of positions you're holding, and so I can get a sense of all of the keys you potentially are holding in this room today. You want to introduce yourself?
I'll start. I'm Lindsay, and I can actually turn on my camera for 2 hot seconds. Hey, and I'm a marketing strategist with iHeartMedia.
Cool. Nice to meet you, Lindsay.
Nice to meet you too.
I'm happy to go too. My name's Annie Lewis, and I'm new to Asheville, and about 6 months in Asheville, and I am a new real estate broker as well, and I've been a corporate meeting and event planner in a long career before that. So.
Awesome. Welcome, Annie.
Thank
Susie, I saw you raising your hand. Here you. Susie?
Are you like straight calling on me?
Oh yeah, well I think I saw. Oh, maybe you were just waving at other people.
I'm not shy. I'm not shy.
Go, Charlotte. I'll trail you, Charlotte.
Okay, Susie. My name is Charlotte Fitzpatrick. I work for Prime Lending. We are a mortgage lender here in town. So I do all kinds of purchase, refinance, renovation, construction, myloanlady.com.
Nice.
Happy to be here.
Thanks, Charlotte. I'm Susie Chandler with Lenore Ryan University and also the Equity and Diversity Institute. I have been in Western Carolina for, oh my gosh, 6 years now. I feel like I'm getting so old here, and really enjoy sharing these spaces with so many people that I know and having these great conversations. Thanks for putting them up, Amy, and for moderating, Connie.
Awesome. How about 2 more people?
Oh, I'll go ahead as also a new person to Asheville like Annie. My name's Dave Coverman. I own a company called Acuity Mergers and Acquisitions. My interest, I've been working with our Rotary group with our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. I've been working with Jay Hackett with the Black Wall Street Asheville effort that he got a grant for recently. It's kind of a continuation of things I had worked on when I was in Indiana. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
Awesome. Well, cool. One more person.
I'll go. I'm Whitney Whitson. I am born and raised here in Asheville, so excited to see the changes and what Asheville is becoming and evolving into. I work at Wells Fargo Bank as a commercial lender.
Nice. Well, welcome everybody. If there's anyone in this room who didn't get to speak up, but who has a position in marketing and storytelling, in fundraising, in hiring, if you have, maybe if you don't do the direct hiring, but you're really close to the team members who do that hiring, all of us in this room have a lot of power and have a lot of ability to be gatekeepers. And all of us probably have some experience being gatekeepers already. So we're going to talk about that today. And I'm really excited. This is a fun group and fun to see like a good range of folks who've been here for a long time and folks who are brand new to town. I think that Asheville's on this really interesting precipice and facing a lot of tensions that could be, could kind of go one way or the other, but I feel really hopeful that these conversations are happening in way more rooms than they ever have been. And I'm continually refreshed and revitalized to see so many more white folks really joining in on this conversation and wanting to participate in a way that feels very different from how it's felt in the past. So thank you all for being here today. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see here. Get this into present mode. Pardon. Okay. Oh my goodness. Done this 4 million times and I still somehow mess it up every time. Share my weird text messages from my husband. Don't want to do that. Let me get this in present. Okay. Y'all can see this? Cool.
Yep.
Okay. We're going to start off with a quote from my dear beloved mother. My mom used to love to say, "It's not what you know, it's who you know." My mom is the daughter of Mexican immigrants. Her mother came to Los Angeles on horseback when she was 16. Very up by the bootstraps sort of story. Grew up. My grandparents grew up in rural farm towns and just got it in their minds that they were going to move to LA, start a family, have a different life for themselves. And they did that. Through a very calculated plan of getting close to the gatekeepers. My grandma did it not so directly. And we'll talk about that in a second. But my mom's life philosophy really was, it's not what you know, it's who you know. She ultimately ended up making a really big name for herself, becoming the community liaison for the district attorney of Los Angeles, and having a lot of power and influence in rooms where a lot of decisions were made. And she did that with some tactics that she really drilled into my head growing up, that she thought would be useful for me as I navigated the world as a white passing woman who she wanted to make sure stayed safe. Survival tactic, I love her for it, but we're gonna think about some of the harm that it caused. So this kind of philosophy came from my grandma, who her life philosophy was really like any stranger can become a friend, shower your guests with food and beverage and hospitality. She used to bring a margarita like kit inside her bag wherever she went. So she would just like stop in the middle of wherever and start like mixing up margaritas for people, very gregarious, always the center of attention. And that really let her find this network in Los Angeles. As a young Mexican immigrant who didn't speak any English, she really quickly knew everybody in the neighborhood and really became like a community leader. And from there, she opened a lot of doors for her own life. She ended up, she worked in a Keebler cookie factory for over 35 years, but all of her children went to law school. And that was something she was really, really proud of. And so all of her, every decision that she ever made when she first moved to this country was really about how to get her kids into rooms that she didn't have access to. And she was really successful in that. So she would, if we'd go to a restaurant and we got sat in a crappy seat because we didn't look fancy enough, she would demand that we sat right in the center where everyone could see us. She would wear very bold lipstick. She'd always have an outfit ready to go. So she always looked very presentable. So her life was all about having this very different interior life at home. And then when we were out in the world, it was look the part, look good, command the room, make sure that nobody is going to overlook you because of who you are and what your background is. And she was really good at it. That translated, the story that passed down to my mom was, don't dress to impress, don't be scared of using your sex appeal. She was always encouraging me to flaunt more skin. I mean, she was not specifically saying sleep your way to the top, but she was always saying Connie, when you get to college, make sure you find the boy that's most attractive and looks the most put together, and sit next to him, sit in the front row, get close to your professors. Lots of that kind of encouraging to walk with confidence, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Never, ever, ever burn any bridges. Always walk through a room like you're supposed to be there, whether that's in a scary neighborhood or a high-end high-end store that you don't feel comfortable in. Never, ever, ever look like you don't know what you're doing. She encouraged all of her children to learn to play golf, learn to ballroom dance, learn to sail, basically do all of these activities that puts you in direct proximity to white people with power. And that worked really well for her. And I will definitely admit that I took a lot of those lessons to heart and did a lot of things in my life that got me really close to people who had power and people who were gatekeepers, and they let me right in. All that comes back to proximity to power, which really goes hand in hand, I think, with gatekeeping. People who have power are more likely to give favorable treatment to people who are close to them. And so if you're a person without power, the closer you get to power is one way that you can kind of get residual benefits from that power. Is that all making sense so far? Cool. I'm gonna assume yes, unless anyone has any questions. Okay. So I, I have a lot of power and privilege, and I have a feeling that a lot of people in this room do too. Some of the ways that I have power and influence are the fact that I'm white passing, I'm able-bodied, I'm cisgendered. I married a man who inherited money that helped him start his business. My husband's last name is Matisse. That is not an accident. He's not a distant relative of Matisse. He had generational wealth that allowed him to purchase a piece of land. Now 100% of it is in our business, and we can even get a bank loan because business ownership without being a profitable business is a really easy way to get yourself in a dumb position. But it was really, really instrumental in starting our business. I am a top executive at an employer of 100 people, which over the last few weeks, I've really, really seen how how much power I have in this, and it's caused a lot of conflict. For folks who are on my leadership team who I haven't had great relationships with, or who don't feel very trusted by me. I can really easily put people into a fear cycle where all of a sudden they're so scared of losing their job, not doing it right, and knowing that I have the ability to fire them at any moment. And that's brought up a lot of tension that we've had to address through mediation. And I think I'm only coming to realize in the last few weeks just how narrow my margin of error can be as a leader when people are feeling really vulnerable about their jobs. So that's a big one. I have 143,000 followers on Instagram who eat things that I serve them off a spoon. I can tell people to go buy something and they will do it. I can tell people to start wearing Tom Ford lipstick and they will ask me the exact shade. So that is a huge, for folks who are running social media campaigns. It's something that we have to take really, really seriously, because there are a lot of folks out there, especially right now in pandemic world, who are kind of sick of doing the thinking for themselves. A lot of people are always sick of doing the thinking for themselves, and so they're on the internet, it's really easy to just take things at face value and want to listen to someone who's considered an expert. So if you're positioning yourself as someone who's an expert in anything, I think that's power that we really need to take really seriously. We have a mailing list of 170,000 people who have disposable income, and I'm allowed to get in their inboxes and say whatever the heck I want. So that's a lot of power and influence. And then because of all this, I've kind of been cornered or have a reputation as a tastemaker, and I get asked a lot for my opinion on things that I don't actually have an expert opinion on. But people listen to me, and so that's something that I need to take seriously. Before we move on, maybe, actually, we'll wait. We'll do this slide too. So I have been the benefactor. Is that it? Is that the right word? The recipient. I've been the recipient. I've been let in by a lot of gatekeepers. Again, because my parents did a good job of getting close to folks with power and money. My godfather, Edward Zelke, got me an interview for my first big job when I moved to New York City from college. My mom, with all of her access to all of these weird government things that it's kind of scary that they exist, put my old license plate when I first moved to North Carolina onto a no-run list. So cops, because I was getting pulled over so many times on my way home from bartending, driving back to Madison County, she put me on a list that when cops ran my driver's license, nothing came up. So they knew that I was not to be messed with, which was great. Love that privilege. And then I'm regularly invited to speak on panels on issues that I'm not an expert in. So those are just 3 ways that that I have been let in. I've been given access through gatekeepers. So I'm going to pause there, and yeah, curious to know if anyone is feeling brave and wants to share some of the ways that they hold power and influence, and maybe even some of the ways that they've benefited from gatekeepers that they've been close to.
I'll go. Hi, I'm Leighton Hauer. I work at the Chamber. A couple of things I thought about that I hadn't considered before, and as a result of you bringing this stuff up, is I got, like, my first job was working for a landscaping company in my hometown as a high schooler. And I haven't really considered that as something that was related to privilege, but the owner knew my parents, and that was just, there's no interview or anything. I just, started working at a landscaping company for, I didn't have to worry about applying to getting that job. And then when I graduated from college, I needed to earn some money to be able to move away from my house. Of course, I'm privileged to have gone to college. I went to a 4-year college, and I got a job in a tractor trailer factory because the HR manager there, I knew him from growing up with him. So that's a couple of ways I've benefited from my privilege.
That's really good. I think the good takeaway there that we'll talk about later is, yeah, your ability to get that job in high school without having to go through like a formal interview process is something I've experienced too. Has anyone else gotten a job from knowing a friend of a friend or a family friend? Yeah, gotten quite a few jobs like that.
Mine's not a job experience, but I'm convinced that I got into my graduate school program because of how many people and who all my grandfather knew at the university where I went. He had been a professor there for years and years, and was very tied in. And I actually got waitlisted and he made 1 phone call, and 2 days later I was in. So I'm sure that it's because of his proximity.
Yeah, higher education happens a lot. I was just watching Legally Blonde for the millionth time, and you know, Elle Woods gets in with her good looks, but and her high LSAT score, but her boyfriend just gets in because of a phone call. Yeah, that's a good one. Maybe one more. Go ahead.
Marielle DeYoung had her hand raised. Marielle, do you want to go ahead?
Oh, I was just raising my hand to agree with I got a job through a friend of a friend. I should unraise that. Sorry.
Okay.
Cool. Go for it. Go for it.
I would also add that my mom worked really hard to make sure that I started young adulthood with a good credit score, which I think she was definitely a gatekeeper in that capacity, making sure I had that.
Yeah, that's lucky. Can't see everyone's names, but I saw one person.
Hi, my name is Maria Pilos. I'll say something. I can't even see what you guys can see of me, so sorry if you're seeing a bad background. But I feel like we might have had some similar relatives. I am an immigrant's daughter, so I'm first generation on my dad's side from Greece. And similarly to you, you know, I look white, right? And it's a real advantage. My dad did not teach us Greek because back in the day to have an accent was not cool. And so it wasn't one of those things you were necessarily flaunting that you were bilingual or anything. So I had to go to alternate things like Greek school and take a class in college and stuff to get my Greek kind of even going, which was kind of crazy, right? So I would have gone, my education was very important to my parents, and I would have gone to a really tiny school that I had never heard of called Pfeiffer College. This was a long time ago, and I grew up in Raleigh, so I'd never heard of Pfeiffer. And I would have gone there because my dad knew somebody who was affiliated with the university. If it hadn't been that I really wanted to go to UNC Chapel Hill, and my dad said, if a friend of his thought UNC Chapel Hill was a good enough school for me to go to because he considered it a bra burning liberal arts school. You know, he thought of Vietnam and all that kind of stuff. I would have gone to Pfeiffer College. Nothing wrong with Pfeiffer College. This is a long time ago. It was smaller, you know, a very small school then, but going to UNC Chapel Hill really changed my life and allowed me into a world of confidence and such that propelled me forward. I was the first in my immediate family to get a college education. And my dad was smart enough to say, if you go straight from undergrad into graduate school, I'll pay for it. But if you wait even 1 year, I won't pay for it. Well, you know, so I was smart enough to go straight into graduate school and have it paid for, which put me into being the first one and the only one who has a master's degree. And, you know, I got married in graduate school, so I probably never would have gotten my master's. But my point being that, you know, it was because my dad knew a banker and he said, well, if he says it's okay, if you go to UNC Chapel Hill, you know, then I'll let you go there. And I mean, honestly, it's because of that man that I just I feel like I owe him so much. But that's an immigrant's daughter story, you know, like we're not going to let you go somewhere we don't know. And we have to go outside the gate to ask, you know, he was a banker. So, you know, he was, you know, kind of what we would have called back in the day, sorry for the improper word of it, but, you know, kind of waspy. And, you know, my dad kind of, you know, went there to say, hey, what's okay. So, you know, I kind of have a lot of those things. So again, I think we have a lot of similar relative background.
Yeah, there's a lot of times we'll see that we won't trust something until someone who has that kind of social status grants, you know, says like, yes, I approve of this, I don't approve of this. Yeah, that's something we see a lot, and those are definitely gatekeepers. Thank you for that. Oops, let's see. All right, so I think we kind of got this. I think we can all probably figure out what we're talking about here, but just a super basic definition of gatekeeping. When an individual or group controls access to goods and services, but particularly to information and people with power. And so some of the things that gatekeepers can grant us and other people are, you know, special treatment, exclusive membership, early access to information, early access to limited resources. You know, when you're hiring someone and before the JD is even written, before the metrics are even written, you start letting all your friends know, oh, you know, get ready to apply, start getting your stuff together and be the first in the door, and networking opportunities. I'm gonna move a little fast just because I already realized it's already 12:30. I don't know how that happened. Okay, so everyone can kind of think about ways that, for the next few slides, just think about ways that in your current position, both at home and at work, what are the things that you are gatekeeping, or how are you serving as a gatekeeper? The three really easy ones for me to identify are fundraising. Who do we raise money for? Right now, because folks have figured out that East Fork's pretty good at raising money, the amount of inbound requests we get for folks who want money to be raised for them is so overwhelming. And a lot of folks are coming and basically saying, like, this great thing that I'm doing is going to die unless you come in there and save it, which is, taps into all the not fun white savory stuff that can happen. Hiring, definitely a place that I bet a lot of us in this room are gatekeepers for. And then storytelling and branded content. That one's a little bit more nebulous, but I think super interesting. Hopefully, hopefully some of y'all will be able to relate to that. Okay, we're gonna go through each one of these. So how does gatekeeping show up in fundraising? This is a big one. I don't even know. I'm not in nonprofits, so I need to be careful about talking about all the ways that I think nonprofits can get really messy, because I don't really know enough. But what I've seen happen a lot is that a cause will start trending because of a news event, or because a celebrity decides to endorse something, or because it's just something that's in the community, it's like a discussion. And so people will kind of glom onto that cause and be like, well, okay, everybody else is doing something for this cause. Let's all rush to this one thing and triage it and, say that we care about this thing. And then, in that, a lot of other causes get kind of pushed back in the shuffle. This one is a big one that gets me really fired up, but I see a lot of folks wanting to only fundraise for a cause that feels palatable. No shade on cat owners. I love my cat, but the fact that Asheville Cat Weirdos gets voted as the #1 nonprofit organization by Mountain Express year after year after year, and people raise $15,000 for someone's cat with a genetic disease, woo, it gets me so riled up. And it's because it's really easy to say that your cause is fundraising for animal rights. Pause there, take my breath. Children, obviously, there's absolutely nothing wrong with wanting to put energy in early childhood and childhood education. Obviously, I'm a big supporter of raising money for organizations that work with and focus on children, but it's also really easy to run this narrative of kids, especially Black kids and BIPOC kids, to say they have to be saved when they're young, and then once they're past adulthood, they're criminals and thugs and whatever, and we're going to forget about them. We can't even, they're lost causes. So that I see a lot of folks really trying to swoop in and help children rather than saying oh, maybe actually their parents could be helping them if they had resources. Maybe we should actually help parents. And treat, environmentalism, obviously focusing on the environment, very important, but it's easier to fundraise for these sorts of things than say something like sex worker health, sex offender rehabilitation, racial justice, reproductive health care, all of these things that get into, move us into places that might feel uncomfortable for some folks to talk about with their families. A cause with a palatable or on-brand spokesperson. We see that happening a lot, where one person is just so good at speaking about the thing they're fundraising for, and you want to have them at all your events because they're so charismatic. Obviously, it's great. There's nothing wrong with having a really charismatic spokesperson, but just pointing out that will often, go toward people who are really charismatic, because that is something that our culture really values. Personal connections and networking, of course, if we have a friend who's working on a project and we really love our friend, we'll want to support their cause. well-established community visibility and presence. So for organizations that have been in Asheville for a really, really long time, and they're really well-established, and they've kind of, as, I'm sorry, I missed your name, but as the woman who just spoke, having this like kind of stamp of approval from others and saying like this organization is good is something that has a lot of social capital. And then organizations' ability or willingness to strongly self-advocate. So if there's an organization that has just a bang-in development team who's always out there networking and putting themselves out there and really being salespeople for the organization, those are all things that that kind of prevent us from potentially looking at fundraising for organizations that aren't hitting these check marks. Is that making sense? Okay. So I have done a lot of gatekeeping while fundraising myself. This is a lot of, I had never, before I started growing East Fork, I had never really participated in fundraising at all. And I didn't really know how to do it, but I got excited. I realized that we had some power and influence and we could raise some money. And so at first, these are just a few different ways that I kind of missed the mark early on. The first fundraiser we did at East Fork was for Equality NC. They do incredible work. I'm not saying that their work is bad, but the donation that we were going to give Equality NC was a drop in the bucket, really. Like they were out there, lobbying for big checks from big organizations, and our $2,500 or whatever it is we donated at that time wasn't going to make much of a difference. And I think I don't even know why I decided to choose Equality NC over anything else. I just kind of chose them without really thinking about it. I started a organization with a friend called Light a Path back when I was doing a lot of, I don't know, self-exploration and doing too much yoga and not enough of anything else. And I think they have a great mission statement, but at the time I felt like they weren't really doing enough to kind of check their own biases, and they were kind of sending out a lot of untrained yoga teachers into populations that were really different than the teachers that they were sending folks to. And there was a lot of like white saviorism happening. They're really addressing that. I love the folks who started that organization. Just saying it right here though, I only said yes to that. I knew at the time when we did a fundraiser for them, I knew it wasn't right, didn't feel good in my gut, but I did it anyway because I didn't want to disappoint my friend. Another way of getting kept. Homeward Bound, also nothing wrong with Homeward Bound, but we did a fundraiser for them because we got a very convincing email that came to us, and I was like, oh, we should do a fundraiser. Yes, we'll do it. No dissing Homeward Bound. I'm just saying we said yes to that because someone did a really good job of telling us that we should do a fundraiser for them. So yeah, I've done basically said yes to people out of a sense of urgency about not wanting to be mean, not having enough time and bandwidth to do research, and then ultimately as a failure to properly establish a fundraising mission and intention. We'll get back to that in a little bit. Whoops. I had a lot of, I was going to make this really beautiful, but my Mercury in retrograde situation, I had trees down, no internet, power out. So I did not get to make this cute, and this one I really screwed up. But hiring is I feel like I got things all out of whack here. Okay. Hiring is another place that we do a lot of gatekeeping. This got us in so much trouble when we were a little organization, growing way too fast. We did a lot of hiring of friends and friends. We have a lot of people who are married to each other or brothers and sisters who work here at East Fork. Again, not a problem for your friends to work in your company. We have some really successful hires that we've made for people that we know, people who are in network. But if you're just hiring friends of friends or folks from your family and not actually vetting them to make sure they're right for the job, you can get into some serious trouble. Urgency in hiring, because if we have a bad habit of, I have a bad habit of not really recognizing when I'm overworked and when I really need to make a hire. I'll keep doing the job that I know I need to outsource for months and months and months until I'm at a breaking point and I'm like, I need to hire someone yesterday. So not planning enough and having to do a rushed hiring job encourages you to end up hiring someone who's in your network, who's really just easy to find. Could start tomorrow. This is a big one, hiring based on experience and education rather than on competency, requiring college or advanced degrees for jobs that don't actually need them. I don't know how many times I've seen JDs for jobs that, like, for, you know, graphic designing jobs that require like a graduate degree and like 15 years experience in graphic design. I'm like, this is like a graphic design job for a car salesman. Like, you don't, do you need that? No. Like, are they good at doing the graphic design? Yes, great. So we have taken, something that we've done is just taken off any requirement for college degree and actually hired people based on competencies rather than accolades. And then a big one is an interview process that centers personality and culture fit rather than a competency fit. This was definitely how we interviewed early on, basically just like doing a vibe check, taking people out to coffee, seeing how we gelled, seeing if they were fun, seeing how they dressed, just like hiring based on whether or not they felt like they could go along with the group, fit in culturally. I mean, I remember I hired a sales associate. She ended up working out great. She still works at East Fork, but the interview that I conducted was truly pathetic. I don't think I asked her any questions that were relevant to being a retail associate. It was just about, I mean, I don't know. We were just like having coffee and then I hired her. Ridiculous. Okay. I messed up this slide, but basically I was just going to tell you all the many ways that I've gatekept while hiring. That they're endless. Namely hiring my little sister, who now goes to Yale Law School as a marketing associate, and she was terrible at her job. And I was too busy to really do anything about it. I just let her float along for a summer before she went to school. Okay, let's see. I don't know how I got this all out of whack. I'm so sorry, so embarrassing. Yikes, guys, I really messed this up. I was trying to mess with this before I came in today. Okay, so what happens when this was in such a perfect order in my brain. Hopefully it still makes sense. So what happens when gatekeeping goes unchecked in fundraising? You'll see popular projects getting overfunded, pushing nonprofits to grow or use the money in ways they're not really prepared to. I see this all the time when people, they have to use their money by a certain date. And so like they end up like, I don't know, I'm thinking of a college recently that I heard of that ended up spending $32,000 on Black hoodies that had like some generic, like, we are all one sort of slogan on it because they had the money and they wanted to spend it before the next, before annual budgets came around, rather than spending it on like the actual, like making their student body feel safer at school. The less palatable projects don't get any funding and they stay in survival mode and they're unable to have the impact that they could have. And then budgets, I see all the time that budgets in nonprofits go disproportionately to marketing and development to attract more donors rather than to the boots on the ground work that their mission statement is kind of intending. When gatekeeping goes unchecked in hiring, people who are, quote, unhireable will stay unhireable and they're unable to build a resume that's attractive to employers. You end up getting a homogenous workplace culture that doesn't have a variety of viewpoints. And then you get a lot of incompetent folks with privilege who end up in roles that they can't actually deliver on. I've definitely made some of those hires because they were able to walk the walk and talk the talk, but not actually do the job that they were hired to do. I am so sorry. Pausing there because I kind of like totally ruined the order of my slides. Is this all making sense? Does anyone have any questions, comments? Feel helpful? Look in this chat, see if anything popped up in there.
You're doing great.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. Okay. Oop. And then this one, I completely deleted my slide before I came in on accident, but I had a lot of beautiful things to say about brand marketing and storytelling, which comes up a lot for us. At East Fork, we reach out to other folks who we know to share content, to like kind of do platform takeovers. Let me make sure I get to, oh, I did, I put them over there. So brand marketing. So you get folks who are like, you know, you're doing an influencer outreach thing and you reach out to like the same 5 folks over and over again, or if there's like one person in town who you know is like the one artist that you know, or the one musician that you know, and so they end up getting all of the work from every single business in town wants to just like inundate them with suggestions, with asks, and that in the same way we do with fundraising, that means that we are only reaching out to folks who are palatable to our audiences, who feel on brand, folks who are just getting a start, who haven't built an audience yet, aren't really given a chance to build an audience. You only get one curated point of view, and you know that power and influence continues to be shared or centralized to just a chosen few. You know, 5 folks in town who maybe who have all of those opportunities handed to them. Which just makes things get boring and stale, and it's just not very good for the culture and growth. Okay, so something that got me really worked up when I first started thinking about this, and especially when folks started calling me out for this, when people were like, that's nepotism, or that's this, or that's gatekeeping, and like my knee-jerk reaction was to be like what's wrong with building relationships? Like what's wrong with having a community of people that you rely on? And there's absolutely nothing wrong with building relationships, and absolutely nothing wrong with, you know, having folks that you trust and love and that you build long-term partnerships with over time. Those are really good and beautiful things. Just within that, we really have to be checking our biases and wondering and asking ourselves, are we working with this person because they're my buddy, or are we working with this person because I really value what they bring to the table and I think my audience will, and they have and they're the right person to be doing this with? And those are 2 different things. Okay, we have not very much time, but I'm going to talk about some really concrete ways that we've been addressing this in fundraising, hiring, and storytelling. Hopefully that will be helpful. I think we've done a pretty good job of figuring out how to deal with some of the ways that we've been gatekeeping in fundraising. And then one of the biggest ways, or one of the most exciting things for me, is creating a really intentional fundraising mission statement, so that when all those inbound requests come and it starts feeling overwhelming, it's not a value judgment at that point. It's, this is our fundraising mission and this work doesn't fit within that mission for this year. And that's kind of it. You don't have to do any sort of like over the top apologizing. For this year, for the past 2 years, our mission has been really, for this year, our mission is very much focused on increasing power in the Black community in Asheville. Very local, hyper local. We've chosen to kind of define our fundraising specifically around the Asheville community, so that way if someone from Charlotte comes with a great idea, we're like, actually we're just working on Asheville. So just kind of limiting your parameters, and within that you can, there's so much beautiful work happening that's really different. You don't have to just say I only support this very tiny thing, but creating some sort of framework so that you don't have to have that internal conflict every single time you have a fundraising opportunity. And then building a fundraising calendar that gives us lots of time to prepare, so that, and then figuring out your fundraising partners well in advance so that they can plan it too, so they can add it to their calendar, so they're not, you're not throwing the opportunity across their desk like 2 days before you want to have a fundraiser, and they're having to rush all around and try to prepare files for you and try to get set up. By reaching out and starting these conversations 6 months in advance, you can really start thinking about how you're going to tell the story in a way that really works for both people. They might, the organization that you're working with might be able to time the fundraising campaign with an event that they're doing or with a certain initiative that they're launching. So making sure that your fundraising efforts are really impactful and that they're co-built, they're collaboratively built with the organization that you're working with. Storytelling is collaboratively built, so that you're not having to be the only translator, or you're the person who is speaking on behalf of that organization, giving the organization an opportunity to tell their story how they want it told. Something that I'm really excited about launching later this year, that one of our values managers has proposed, is the creation of a wisdom council. So rather than us as East Fork reaching out, like looking around and seeing who's doing what work, creating a council of 5 to 8 community elders who are more connected with communities that they're serving, who can bring us suggestions for work to support that, you know, maybe folks who are doing really good work but don't have a beautiful website or who aren't on Instagram. And that takes off, that kind of decentralizes, it serves the next point, which is to decentralize the vetting process. Before I was kind of the sole decider of who got money. And that's a huge responsibility for one person. You know, there were organizations that we did work with that our fundraising kind of made or break, like it allowed them to completely change the course of their year. And for me to be the only person deciding who we support in that way makes me a gatekeeper in a way that I don't want to be. So decentralizing that vetting process from the executive and the company and making that decision more collaborative, I think is a good call. Okay. In hiring, there's so much good information out there how to make hiring processes more equitable. The ones that we're really drilling down on are defining core competencies for each role and building interview questions that stay focused on the job at hand, so that when someone is coming in, you're asking the same questions to everybody. You're really, you know, hiring on metrics that are applicable to the job rather than, are they a good schmoozer? Do I like their shoes? Do they know 15 people I know? Building a thoughtful staffing plan and giving plenty of runway, just making sure you have lots of time to actively recruit in outside of your direct network. Widening your network in general and making sure that jobs are going onto community boards and value aligned recruiters, sending jobs to historically Black colleges and universities to put in their networks, job development organizations. So just casting a really wide net and not making assumptions that someone that you hire has to come from a very specific population. Let yourself be surprised, I think is really, really important. And you can let yourself be surprised by using a blind screening process. So starting off interviews with some knockout questions. I love this, giving people an option to answer questions on a voicemail rather than having to write it down. There are a lot of jobs out there that actually don't need written communication skills at all. And there's some folks who are really, really good talkers who are not the best writers. So giving the option of answering knockout questions by calling and leaving a voicemail instead of sending an email, and asking questions that are open-ended enough that you can gather information that you maybe wouldn't be able to gather on just a quick phone screen. And then all of this, none of this prevents you from being able to hire friends or family. Ultimately, if you send all of your friends and close contacts and friends of friends and family through the same old process that everybody else is going through, and they come out as the most qualified candidate, then you don't have to worry about someone saying, well, that person got that job just because they knew so-and-so. You can say, well, actually, this person got that job because they went through this process just like everybody else and they were the best candidate for the job. Because equity is not just like blindly doing things out of like a desire to look unracist. That's very important to remember too. Okay, in marketing, so let's all think back to June after the uprising, after the killing of George Floyd, when every single sock company, makeup company, grocery company, all of a sudden were like finding the one Black person they know and taking pictures of them and putting them as like their spokesperson for all of their products and all of their Instagram, and starting to say like Black Lives Matter and down with white supremacy, but they had never, ever, 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 ever in their lives said those words before. It was just awful. It was just truly awful. That's okay, they can fix it. And the fix here is really to start from where you are. It's not a good look to jump on a bandwagon if you don't already have a history of speaking to certain things. And so leading with curiosity rather than urgency, not trying to be an expert on something that you're not an expert in, joining a conversation when you have something to really add rather than as something to value signal, I think is really, really important. So rather than being like, oh, our Instagram feed doesn't have, any representation on it, like, let's go find some folks who would make our Instagram feed look better. That's got to start with developing real relationships. So building relationships over time, widening your own network, never ever forcing relationships, and getting really clear on how to differentiate between tokenization and representation. That is a whole other conversation that would take many hours, but I would encourage everybody to think on that a little bit. Yeah, don't overdo it. Stay true to your mission. Like I think that any company and any person has the ability to speak about anything that they feel is valuable to them. And I don't think that anyone should feel like they can't add something to a conversation or can't participate in a conversation, but potentially take a look at your brand guide and see if it's too limiting, and see if if you're unable currently because of a brand guide or because of communication rules, see if you're kind of getting in your own way by overly limiting your brand guide. I think I like to think of brands as, or I like to think of good brands as humans who, all of us have ways that we show up in some rooms that we don't show up in other rooms. We have ways that we act when we're sad and when we're happy and when we're excited. We have ways we act when we're angry. And they all look really, really different. But there's still, if I were to do something that was like so wildly out of character, if I were to act angry in a way that I've never acted before, my friends might be like, yo, Connie, what's going on? Like, this is not who you are. So a brand can have just as many personalities as a human, just as many stories to tell. But if your brand is always like this color, smiley face, this tone of voice, like brands can't be tones of voice. So really think about your brand and the way that you communicate. Make sure it's cohesive. Make sure it acts in step with each other, with itself, but it allows itself to be whole. Does that make any sense?
Mm-hmm. Connie, if I might interrupt you. Yes, that makes perfect sense. This is Amy talking. We are at 1 o'clock. Are you still there? Belle, did you? Connie? Did we lose her after all that beautiful work? Maybe she'll come back to us. But I'll jump in. I think it's super interesting how she frames it from her perspective, from branding, from hiring, from interviewing, from all the things. Again, Crystal and I've had these conversations, the transparency, the thing, I'm going to say it, the thing I got the most out of this was the tokenization does not equal representation. I think that is a big one that we need to focus on and make sure that we're aware of it. Connie, is that you are here?
Yes, I also just saw that this ended at 12:50 instead of 1. I'm so sorry.
No, 1 o'clock, you're good.
Okay, cool.
Good. Yeah, I was just saying thank you. And your words of wisdom are so easy to take as a person in business, as a human, as a white person. I was saying my favorite is tokenization does not equal representation. We're all guilty of that in some aspect, I think. So thank you very much. We are going to send the list of attendees to all of you so that you may contact each other if you need to. Connie, thank you for being here. Thank you for your expertise. Crystal, thank you. Annie Carpenter, I don't know if you're still on here. Thank you so much from Mission. And I look forward to seeing all of you again. Tomorrow night is Business After Hours at 4 p.m. on our website. You may register. We would love to see you. Thank you all for attending the Smart Series.
Thank you. Sorry I rambled.